It shocks me how strong he was. Like, he was always saying that it was God that was getting him through, or his family, but when it comes down to it, it was really him that was getting himself through.
I spent 3 years in a concentration camp, including the infamous Auschwitz. Now, if I'll be talking for about 45 minutes, this will just give you an idea what hell is all about, because I can't find another words to describe concentration camp. It's hell on earth.
Well, I even just went home yesterday and told my mom I met this amazing old lady who had been through this experience, and she's no taller than 4'8", and she's just this powerhouse in a sense.
In 1941, I ran away without shoes, a little dress, and we ran, and we stayed in the bushes over 6 months. Every day we moved another one. And at night I go out at 3 o'clock, midnight when it's not sun, in the garden to steal. I stole potatoes, cabbage, as long as I should have what to eat.
I remember when my mother and my 2 sisters came with me to the train station to go to that French labor camp. I was hugging my mother and I was kissing my 2 sisters, and hopefully the war won't last too long. I'll be back home in no time. As I was coming to the top of the stairs going to the platform, I said to myself, should I turn around and wave once more? But the minute I turned around and I waved to my mother, I knew I made a mistake, because this is the first time I saw her crying. She cried uncontrollably, and I burst out crying. And even today, over 60 years later, I wish I would not have turned around, because this is the last time I saw my mother.
On top of the fact that I was really honored to meet someone like that, it made me really sad, because you actually get to hear about what happened to her, and I don't think I could have been as strong as she is. She's just an amazing woman.
So I came once to a poor woman, and she opened the door, and she saw me. She was Christian, Catholic. When she saw me, she said, Anya, come in. And I was afraid she's going to tell them that I am. No, she took me in, and she hid me. Where did she hide me? In a cellar. So I stayed there for 2.5 years. No light, no water.
I had seen a Holocaust speaker in university, and a man came in and he spoke, and I witnessed him for about 3 moments in which he actually relived the event that occurred. He went to Auschwitz as well. He went with 14 people. He was the only one to survive, and he witnessed his mother, father, siblings shot right in front of him. And he stood there and went through the whole entire thing with all of us watching. He relived it, and to this day I think that that was the most influential thing that I have ever witnessed in my lifetime. And it was the point in which that's what I decided that I wanted to be a teacher.
What is the final solution?
The final solution is to get the dispose of all the Jews. The final solution, as a matter of fact, there's a word that they had, the final solution of the Jewish problem. That's how they phrased it. And just to give you an idea, 6 million Jews died, so it must have been well planned, well organized. And the big shock when you saw these crematorium, these chimneys, burning 24 hours a day. They burn 10,000 bodies a day. It just boggles the mind. Even I was there, and I can't it's hard to believe.
It brought a lot of emotion out in me, because I could sort of feel their pain about the way he was telling it, because he took his time and he said it with so much emotion. Just got to me.
We were 4,000 prisoners, and when the train finally started to leave, we were each given a small loaf of bread, and they told us that this will have to last 4 days. We went all through Germany and into Poland, and when the train finally stopped at 4 o'clock in the morning, the SS says everything stays on the train. A young lady with a baby close to her breast got off the train, and the baby started to cry. And no matter how hard she was trying to keep the baby quiet, the baby cried harder and harder. The SS walked over to her and says, "Keep this quiet." Didn't even say keep the baby quiet. Keep it quiet. How can you keep a baby quiet? The SS ran towards her and grabbed the baby by the legs and threw it against the train. The heartbreaking crying from the mother, I can't find the words to describe it. Where am I? What is going on? This was just the first 15, 20 minutes.
The horrors of it, like how actually horrible it was, and how people could be so cruel and do all those things to other human beings. That's what really stands out to me.
Do you know what happened later on in the war? What ended up happening with the rest of your family? Did they end up staying where it was that you originally left them and were killed, or
All
did
killed.
they get shipped
told
off
me,
to camps?
They killed
or-
me. The Ukrainian told me when I came back, and they told me the German didn't want to waste a bullet, so each killed the other one with a shovel. He said, "That's why your brother, your uncle killed your father." They took away everything. You know what they used to do? When they killed the Jews and they have golden teeth, they used to take out the golden teeth before the kill, and they collect the teeth because it's gold.
The first selection came where the commandant decides with a flick of his finger who's to live and who's to die. The first order came, women and children and anybody over 50 on the left. Well, somehow I felt this does not look too good, because these were elderly people, women with children, so I felt that I'm much better off to be on the right. As we walked towards the camp, by then there was only about 700 left from over 2,000 that actually entered the camp. But as we walked closer to the entrance of Auschwitz, and I don't know if you've ever seen the famous line, "Arbeit macht frei," as we walked towards the camp and I looked at that sign, I thought to myself, God forbid, if Germany wins the war, I'll never will come out from this place alive. I felt it deep inside that I'll never make it. As we stood in line to be tattooed, my number, as you must have seen by now, was 72585, and it was other prisoners who did the tattooing. Your number will be 72585. Forget your name. As of right now, you are a number. Whenever they call you, whenever they want you, whenever they need you, it's going to be by your number. I said, well, how many people are in this camp? He says, about 30,000. I said, well, where are the rest of them? And he pointed to the chimney, which was spewing flames. And I said, what's that? He says, well, all these people that came with you went to the gas chamber and then to the crematorium, and that's what you see, they're all being burned. I said, what are you talking about? He says, you'll get used to it. These chimneys were going 24 hours a day. The smell was such a sweet, sickening smell. Within 5 minutes, I started to vomit. I was so naive. I thought when I saw these big chimneys, I thought these were the kitchens. I thought this is where they prepared the food for the prisoners. I had no idea that these were the crematoriums.
You know what it's kept me alive there? I was thinking, talking to myself, the good life what I have as a child and what we used to eat. And this made me a hope. That's made me to survive the good, because I come from a well family. So what we gonna eat, what we gonna eat, and which school I used to go, and people around me. We used to be with Christians like a family. They knew the Jews and I knew the Christians. We didn't know antisemitism. I didn't know what it means. It's only when the Germans came in.
We recognize the importance of this, and it's something that students, whether they say it or they don't, they take this part with them. And I think that that's one of the most important things that we can offer them and offer teenagers, specifically in high school, is that knowledge, and then once we give them that knowledge, how they can apply it to what is going on in our lifetime and in our world, that then if something then strikes them as being off or strikes them as being wrong, then they have the courage to stand up and say that I know from the past what has happened, and I'm not about to let this happen again.
One Sunday afternoon, I did not have to go, we did not work. I was roaming around the camp, looking if I can find something to eat, because you cannot imagine what hunger is all about. As I was walking along the camp, I see somebody walking towards me. And all of a sudden I stopped and I looked at him. And I said to him, I know you. He says, you do? And I said, are you so-and-so? He says, yes. I say, didn't your father have a bakery? He says, yes. I said, and you lived down such and such a street at the corner of the next street? He says, yes, that's my father. I said, oh my God, I know you. And he looked at me. Of course, by then I was already a few months in the camp, walking around with striped uniforms, shaved head, skinny. Oh my God, I didn't recognize you. I said, well, we'll make it. We'll survive. We'll just stick together. We'll survive. The war won't last forever. We'll make it. And he started to cry. And the minute he started to cry, I started to cry. He cried harder than ever. He says, David, he says, I have some bad news for you. I said, what are you talking about? He says, I don't know how to put it to you, but something terrible. I said, well, tell me, what is it? And I started to shake. He says, your mother and your two sisters were on my train. Well, then I knew right there and then, what am I fighting for? Why am I trying to survive? I was liberated April the 29th, 1945. The day of my birthday, I was 20 years old. Not too long ago, I was talking to a school, and when I mentioned that I was liberated April the 29th, 1945, I was 20 years old. Somebody ran up the stage crying so hard, and she grabbed my arm and she kissed my number. And she says, David, if you were liberated April the 29th, 1945, and if this was the day of your birthday, this is the day you were born again. So true.
It kind of puts it more into perspective because, like, he was my age, he went through all of that, and that changes a person. I don't know. And like, if it was me, I don't think I would have been able to, like, survive that experience at all. How did you keep your faith throughout the whole time?
How did I keep my faith? Well, when I came back after the war, when I came back to my hometown, I did not believe. I was just a wild animal. I did not believe in anything. I was just a rebel, fighting with everybody, always getting into arguments. Even the psychiatrist, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, couldn't even talk to me because I threw my shoes at him. But the only thing that went through my mind, what are they going to do to me? Are they going to put me in a concentration camp? So I just didn't believe in anything. I just lived like a wild animal, because every stone in my street reminded me of my upbringing and of my family. At one time I had 19 people of the family. The next day they're all gone.
How did you feel when you knew you were going through hell just because you were Jewish?
I never realized that being Jewish was such a burden. And At times I did say to myself, I wish I wasn't Jewish. But then I said, well, you have to accept it. You are a Jew, you're going to die a Jew. It's only after the war when I survived, I said, my God, look at what I went through just because I'm a Jew. As if you can pick your religion.
I just really think like how like sometimes as teenagers, like I'm only 16, like people make like small jokes about calling someone like of like a certain race, a certain like thing or something like that, and like I have many friends coming from many different cultures, coming from many different religions, and you don't really think about it when they say like racial comments or something, because normally you think they're joking, but like it's things like that could escalate into something more, and you don't want anything like the Holocaust or the Rwanda genocide ever happening again. So if we just try to like eliminate small things like that, maybe that could be a step to better the world and better the people, so nothing does happen again.
When people started disappearing from the ghettos, would you immediately associate it with them going off to concentration camps, or did you just think they were leaving? Or?
To me, after us, when they send away those people, the older one, the kids, they kept it. And the kids, they put it us in farms to pick potatoes. That's why I was saved. I was picking potatoes in the field. So that's why I was saved, because I ran in the field.
Things like this help them to figure out where they stand. Do they sincerely care when they sit here and listen? A lot of them did, if not all of them. If you looked at some of the looks on some of their faces, I haven't heard my classroom be so quiet all year long. I can't believe that there was intelligent questions coming out of their mouths. It was unbelievable. And I knew that it was in them, but it was as if someone needed to show up in order for them to be able to care enough to be able to articulate what they're thinking and what they're feeling.
120, can you imagine 120 people? And then locking, that's it. I still remember when I heard that banging, that clanging, where they locked the doors. It was pitch black for 4 days. That's exactly the way it was. Oh God, when I see that clanging, it brings back memories.
We only read it in textbooks, right? And we don't get like the full emotion of it. And then you like sitting up there and telling us about this, it just like, it really touched me, and it showed like how like strong you are, and that like, I'm sorry. I'm just like, it really moved me, and I'm like always gonna remember it. I know I'm never gonna forget it now, and anyone who tells me different, I'm gonna be like, no, this happened, like I've been through it, I've felt the pain of someone else. So just thank you. Thank you so much.
Give me a hug.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much.
For these kids, having firsthand experiences like that allows them to say, I remember when this happened. As opposed to just reading a sentence out of a book, they have that connection now. So for that young lady, she will ensure that not only does she tell her friends and her family, but that children that she has, brothers and sisters' children, all of these people to come, she will ensure that she speaks of what experience happened today.
I'm a survivor and I have no family. If I would have children, they'll tell about the mother, but who's gonna tell about me? Nobody. That's just very important for me.
How much longer will I be here? And that's why I think it's extremely important. I want the world, or the students, to know what it means, hate. Because primarily there's no other word for it. It was hate. And that's why I feel that they should know what hate is all about.
If everyone were lucky enough to hear someone like Anna or a different like survivor or something like that talk, I think people would have a better understanding and know that things like that just are so unacceptable, and that nothing like that could ever happen again, because it was just so horrible.
Fight for human rights. Like, if somebody's being persecuted on, don't just leave them and think it's never gonna happen to you. Go and help everybody you can, because if you don't help them when there's nobody else to help you, you're alone.
It really does feel like a gift, and I think I don't know. I think I should keep the memory alive, and the only way to do that is to go out there and talk to people about it, and not let it die out with them, because that's part of like human history that we can't really forget. Because if we forget that, then there's a possibility it's going to be repeated again, and nobody wants that.
I don't think you could ever forget this, ever.